I have to unplug it once or twice, it's the worst that happens. So be it.
Okay, we're going to be working on the projector here, so we get the meeting started. I want to welcome everybody to our November 8th program. And I guess everybody got voted already. And you might even know the results by Veterans Day. Yeah, next year. And also, I guess I can tell everybody happy Thanksgiving, that's coming up. And I'd like to, our board members and officers, our co-presidents, that's myself, Jim Hammond, and Wayne Bossier, he's not here tonight. Our vice president, newsletter editor, and one of our researchers is Helen Wilson. Okay. Program coordinators, Todd Miller is over there, and Toby is not here, Toby Chapman. Membership coordinator, Stanley Klein at the back table. Email coordinator is Tony Inavina, he's also one of our researchers. And we have treasurer is Evelyn Young, and she's not here. And our media specialist, she's on the camera back there, Audrey Glickman. And Jean Binstock, she generally works at the back table, but she's not here tonight. And Charles Subcopy is our new person and board member, and he's also a researcher. Okay, next year we're going to have our Zoom and our programs will continue to be at the Church of the Redeemer. They've been, we've got the contracts all signed, so we're ready for all next year. The programs are continue will be live and on Zoom. Also, we have a 2023 membership drive is in process now. Members, of course, a lot of you guys are members, but you get the exclusive benefit of our monthly newsletters. And, you know, they're full of all kinds of interesting articles about Squirrel Hill. And if anybody knows anybody who wants to be a member, we're glad to have them. Or makes a great holiday gifts. I happen to send a few of them out to people who used to live here. And it's only $15 for a single and $25 for a couple. And we'll have membership forms on the back table, and also you can go on our Squirrel Hill Historical Society.org and hit how to join. And also the Tree of Life documentary is now streaming on HBO Max. And I don't, is that going to change, or that's always going to be on that?
The next 10 years.
Oh, geez. Okay. I guess I'll have to find somebody that has HBO Max.
In 10 years.
Our next program, December 13th, is going to be the history of Pittsburgh's Chinese community by Lita Ott, OTT, and she's a producer of a documentary of Pittsburgh Lost Chinatown. That'll be an excellent program. And then January 10th is going to be Squirrel Hill by the Numbers. That'll be interesting. There's David, is it Rosenstein? Anyway, he'll talk on the Pittsburgh Jewish Numbers Syndicate from the 1930s and 1960s. And that was before my time. Okay, now Ellen's going to have a little information to give us, and followed by Tony.
Good evening, everyone. As you probably know, every year we've been doing a Squirrel Hill calendar in conjunction with the Squirrel Hill Urban Coalition. And as usual, we're a little late getting it out, but it's actually done. So on the back table, you can order it online. There's a flyer, and the QR code will take you to the Shuck website where you can order the calendar. But in a few days, it will be available at Marie Cohen, who's the executive director of Shook, wasn't quite sure yet, but she thinks 10,000 Villages and Riverstone and Games Unlimited will be selling it. So it makes a great holiday gift. We have some really wonderful pictures in it this year. So anyway, flyers are in the back, along with the new Squirrel Hill magazine. If you're not from Squirrel Hill and you haven't gotten the Squirrel Hill magazine, there's free copies in the back. Okay?
Thank you, Helen. Jim asked me, I am your email coordinator, but I also double as the president of Friends of Neil Log House, and Jim asked me to do a little update. You can read the newsletter updates every month. This month, we had a nice summary of the Kerner House events. The artist Henry Kerner House on Megley Hill was a wonderful 3-day program for the community, and financially it was very rewarding as a fundraiser for the Neil Log House, because that's what all the proceeds went toward. Read that story. If you didn't look at it in our newsletter, it is online now, and also look at, and any of our non-members also are welcome to go onto our website and click the link for the Neil Log House and read a little bit about the story and our project. We're 2 years into the project, and I want to say we're very close to realizing our goal of letting contracts and begin renovating, reconstructing the Neil Log House at Chenley Park. So watch for some exciting news the next couple of months. Things are going to be popping. Jim, that's all I have.
Okay, next will be Todd Miller, our program coordinator. And he's going to introduce the speaker for tonight.
Thank you, Jim, and good evening, everyone. Our speaker this evening is Marc Virostek. He's an amateur historian who will speak on the topic Discovering Pittsburgh City Seals. Marc has had an interest in and has been keeping track of Pittsburgh's art and architecture for many years. He has traveled around Pittsburgh searching for and photographing all the places he could find that feature the seal of the City of Pittsburgh. In this presentation, Marc will talk about the City of Pittsburgh seal and present the results of his wide-ranging research. He hopes to continue to refine his catalog of Pittsburgh seals and collect them into a book sometime soon. So at this time, it's my pleasure to present our speaker this evening, Marc Virostek.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here and to be presenting my findings. It's been quite a few years that I've been working on this, and you know, it was kind of on the back burner for a little bit, and I have an opportunity now to sort of bring it out and kind of go through everything and organize it, and which has been really great because, as Todd said, the eventual goal of this is to come up with some kind of a book of photographs and historical information about a lot of these. So yeah, thanks for having me, and let's get to it. I guess I want to first start out by talking about how this thing came about, and it was kind of a bit of serendipity. I had missed a light at the intersection of the bottom of Washington Boulevard and Allegheny River Boulevard on my way over to Waterworks one day, and you know, I was sitting there and just kind of staring out the front window, and I saw these beautiful things to either side of the Brilliant Boat Club and the Department of Public Works there, and they looked familiar. I recognized, oh, that's the seal of the City of Pittsburgh, but I really had no idea why they were there, and so the light turned green, and I sped on my way, but in the back of my mind I sort of thought, one of these days I'll have to pull in there and check these out a little further. So sure enough, a month or two went by, and I caught that light again, And this time I had a few minutes, so I said, I'm going to pull in there, I'm going to check these out today. So that's what I did. And when I pulled my car in, around the back was this beautiful inscription. And the first thing I thought was, Murray Avenue Bridge over Beechwood Boulevard? What the heck are these things doing over here? And this like light bulb went off in my head, and I just thought, there's got to be something more to it. And the brain just started going, and as somebody who has really loved looking around and noticing architectural details and things, I thought, how many more of these things are there? And so, just really quickly, I want to show you right here on the bridge where these beautiful things were. And there's a nice reference for a fella. I don't know, am I blocking the way here? Sorry, folks. So, yeah, somebody thought, well, let's put these, back in the day when they were, you know, conscientious about these kinds of things and wanted to sort of promote the civic and public works of engineering that they had done. They thought, let's put a couple of these things up on the bridge and it'll be really nice. Funny enough, the seal was facing out, so people passing on Beechwood Boulevard below and in the surrounding areas would have seen that great front of the eagle and the castle and the seal, and not necessarily the people walking or driving along the bridge or on a trolley. So as I started looking into finding these and things like that, part of the process has led me all over the place, and one of those places was, of course, being a researcher. I got a chance to really delve into some archives and find different avenues to locate these things instead of just merely out in the world. So here's a really beautiful, detailed rendering of what they were supposed to look like, and that was fulfilled to a T, as we can see. So before I kind of get into everything, I want to sort of talk about just a very brief overview of Pittsburgh for those out there in the internet world, and then how the seal came to be. So General Forbes was the one who named our area. On November 25th, 1758, he called it Pittsburgh, as they replaced Fort Duquesne with Fort Pitt. And then 10 or 11 years later, by 1769, a small town had arisen, and the land is surveyed by the Penns. And roughly 5,700 acres is entitled Pittsburgh Manor, and then another 25 years after that, Pittsburgh is incorporated as a borough in 1794, the population being around 1,300 people at that point. So fast forward another 20 years, and by 1816, the borough had grown large enough so that the state legislature, in a special act, on March 18th, 1816, established it as a city. So that's kind of our birth date, if you will, even though we all know that we've been around longer than that, and of course the Native Americans and the Ohio Valley Mound Builders even longer than that. So at any rate, between March and July 1816, they're getting all the paperwork together, and that's right around when the seal is established, in addition to eventually on July 5th being enacted as a municipality, and it's decreed the first Tuesday in July of 1816, there's going to be an election, speaking of elections, and 15 persons are elected to the Common Council, 9 persons are elected to a Select Council, and the first mayor of Pittsburgh, anybody? Audrey.
Ebenezer Denny.
Ebenezer Denny. Major Ebenezer Denny. So eventually, from 1816, in 1911, all those members are incorporated into a single council in 1911. So as far as the history of the seal goes, a lot of you may already know this. It's based on William Pitt, the Earl of Chatham's arms, includes the motto Benigno Numine, which can either mean with the benevolent deity or by the favor of the heavens. And in enacting the corporation of the City of Pittsburgh and the seal, they come up with this very lovely old-timey description of what it should look like. So this is a wonderful mosaic that's, if you've ever been to the Fort Pitt Museum down at the Point, somebody put this wonderful mosaic in the floor as you enter the building, and it's of the William Pitt, the Elder's seal with, and you can see in the middle there, things are starting to sort of take shape with Pittsburgh. Just mentioning Mr. Pitt, the Right Honorable, the Earl of Chatham, a member of the Privy Council and the Fellowship of the Royal Society. He, at various times, went from being simply a member of Parliament to and leader of the House of Commons to eventually getting a lordship, which is the earldom, and then going on to lead Great Britain in the Battle of the 7 Years' War, and really a very instrumental character in the development of England. He sort of bridged Old England with New England, and was really a force to be reckoned with. He just had a zeal for expansionism and imperialism, and just sent Britain out into the world to conquer and acquire all of these new areas. So we are his namesake, and he's several centuries have passed, but he truly is one of the great individuals in English history. So the fact that we are named after him is quite an honor, really, if you're looking at it from that sort of perspective of might. So, and then, so the proper seal of Pittsburgh, when it's seen correctly, does have these blue and white checkered bits in the middle that relate to William Pitt. And as you can see, this is a beautiful stained glass window in the English Nationality Room. And if you've never seen the Nationality Rooms at the University of Pittsburgh, they're all wonderful. But so the elements of the seal to be kind of concerned about or to make note of, the castle, which in medieval heraldry represented a town or a city. The 3 gold bezants, which are blazoned with eagles. And I can't quite corroborate this definitively, but there's a funny story that in relating in the ordinance what the description of the seal should be, it said 3 gold bezants, and the story goes that the engraver heard 3 gold pheasants, and he thought to himself, pheasants? Well, those aren't very regal. I think I'm going to change them to be eagles. And so this has sort of become an urban myth. It's kind of a funny story, and I'd like to think it's true, but without an actual interview from that gentleman, I'm not sure that we'll ever know. So I quickly realized, boy, these things, as I start finding them around, they're in a wide variety of locales. They're of a diverse assortment of materials, and there's some pretty interesting people involved in where they are and why they got there. Hey, how'd that get in there? So I start kind of strategizing and planning, and I come up with a definitive set of goals. How many could I find? Where are they all? what is their significance, and how should I organize and synthesize these into some orderly fashion. So I start thinking, obviously, of the citywide buildings and that would probably have seals on them. And so the first one I'll go through is a police and fire station, which are actually, they're all unique and lovely in their own way and from different time periods, which you'll see. This is a beautiful, beautiful terracotta example over in Shadyside. And just starting to see these and how unique they are, it just kind of lit a fire inside of me. I got really excited, and I was like on a scavenger hunt. I was like a little kid on an Easter egg hunt. It's like, it suddenly took on this whole new meaning, and sometimes I just get into my car and I would just head over to a neighborhood I'd never even been in before, and look at the map and see, oh, there's a school there and a school there and there's a fire station, and I would just kind of drive around, and that's how I've actually found a lot of these through serendipity. This is one of my old haunts, the Oakland Beehive. You guys might know it as the King's Court, and that's right there next to the where the marquee is for the old movie theater. And I had been going there for years and years, and let me tell you, I never noticed that until I kind of got my seal dar on. This is this is between the Boulevard of the Allies and the Smithfield Bridge, a very old fire engine company, and William Brady was the architect of that building on Smithfield Street. This is a wonderful building, kind of up near that wonderful Lincoln Leamington School with the fantastic clay terracotta work of all the figures from around the world. And this fire engine house was done by Keenel and Elliott, who were, in their own way, kind of remarking on a young Frank Lloyd Wright that they had who had kind of come to prominence, and so that's a cool building. A couple of stations from the same era, the mid to late 20s, and I found this style. There's another one located in East Liberty, sort of over by the near Penn Avenue and East Liberty Circle. I love this funny little figure here, this little face, little gnome character, and the three-dimensionality of some of these is more and less sometimes, and as you'll see as well, in different aspects. The next and very large collection of seals was an obvious one as well, were schools. So this very beautiful entranceway that Edward B. Lee did in front of the Connolly Trade School, which is now the Energy Innovation Center. Over there is, here's a guy on the telephone, and maybe that's like Marconi and Bell, and that's a beautiful one. I'd like to see that cleaned up someday. Oliver High School, towards the back above their, I think their theater entrance, has this beautiful example with these griffins. And over there, through the Corliss Tunnel, up in Sheridan, McClure and Spar did Langley High School, which is graced with not one but two examples. And I think that it's neat that there are two distinctly different examples. One of my favorites was completely by accident. I was just driving and I kind of shot my head to the left and noticed a little elementary school kind of tucked away up in Chartiers at the top of the hill there, and I kind of was going around the building and I didn't see anything, and I was kind of walking back to my car and I noticed these doors into their gymnasium, and I said, wait a minute, and I went up, and this is the this is like a plaque, a little, like almost to like push the door open, and it's the funniest little version of a seal, complete with elementary school graffiti there as well. So that Charles Warren had done that, and this is Prospect Union High School over in Mount Washington. He also did this wonderful seal. I love that the eagle is kind of gripping the bottom of the seal there with its talons. One of my favorite examples are the great Rudy Brothers stained glass window of the old Margaretta Elementary School. That's where Gene Kelly went to high school, over there in East Liberty on the edge of Highland Park. And they essentially kept the sort of part of the school and like built onto it, and so these windows are all still there. And I couldn't find the custodian to kind of flip all the switches on to get them to light up, but they all light up from the rear so that they're truly illuminated as stained glass should be. So the Rudy Brothers, excellent, very prominent East End stained glass makers, and a lot of homes in the East End have Rudy Brothers stained glass on the stair landing. So bridges and tunnels, well, we've got quite a few of those in Pittsburgh, right? Here are a couple of examples by Stanley Rausch. He was busy at this time, being the city architect, and had a chance to make these wonderful seals. I think these might be a couple of my favorites, castles, because of the three-dimensionality of them. It's just so wonderful. And I got this, I made it a specific trip in the fall to get this creeper nestled around that seal, and I love the color. Probably some of the most epic and monumental seals were Charles Keck's Manchester Bridge portals, and they were, it was kind of a cost-cutting measure, because originally they had intended more of like a 16th Street sort of stone portals on either side, maybe with some sculptures, but that was deemed a bit too expensive, and so they, Charles Keck said, well, you know what, we can make them out of steel, and you know what, bronze, and we'll cut down on the cost, and we'll still have some wonderful things here. So they are to either side representing some prominent figures in the Revolutionary and French and Indian eras, and then our industrial history. So we've got the great guide of George Washington, Christopher Gist, on the left there, with Chief Guy Asuda of Sharpsburg. And on the bottom, we've got Joe Magarac and Jan Volcanic, a couple of, I guess they would be like the Paul Bunyans of the iron and steel world. They were larger than life. Joe Magarac could bend a steel beam with his bare hands. So they were originally, this photograph is from where they used to be at the Children's Museum, and as they wanted to sort of enlarge the parking area and kind of have more space, so these were removed, and for many years they sort of languished, and nobody really kind of knew where they were publicly. But I dug around, and with the help of Diana Nelson Jones, she had a really great article in the Post-Gazette, and she, after my prompting, and she said, where are those seals? And so somebody from the Steelers was like, hey, we've got them, and they're just alongside the stadium there, and we're taking good care of them, and there's plans to sort of put them back somewhere, and and feature them as part of the city history. So that did happen, as you may know. The one got reinstalled right next to stage AE, so the next time you're down by the Mr. Rogers and the memorials there, you can see and go right up to the Guy Yasuda and Christopher Gist. So another aspect that that features seals are memorials and monuments to our fallen heroes. And so here's the great Frank Vittor's World War I memorial. I was going to throw a slide in there to show. It's sort of like this. It's a monumental work and beautiful. And then here on the right is the Fallen Officer Memorial in Bloomfield, and this is kind of a unique example in that it's sort of like printed. It comes from like possibly an old photograph or maybe a seal that was in a book or something. So, but it's on a weatherproofing board. Another one of my favorites is also Charles Keck, America or Victory, that stands out front, Soldiers and Sailors Memorial, and her shield is one great seal of the city of Pittsburgh. It's very epic. You can imagine somebody having that and just in an actual battle or something. That alone, I think, would have struck some fear into somebody who saw it. So, governmental buildings, we have things like municipal utilities, and we've got rec centers, and then of course the city-county building. So I happened to be going down to see a movie, and I was at the waterworks, and right where the water-saving ponds are, there's the old pump house has a beautiful seal on the one side facing the city, and then this newer building, probably from the 60s or 70s, has got them all along this cap on the building. The Chamber of Commerce building, which was an Edward B. Lee building, has a beautiful one. It's about 20 stories up. Rec centers often feature them, and in various kind of, mostly sort of stamped concrete or some kind of a concrete form that was made. So I've been mentioning some names some of you may or may not be familiar with. Charles Keck, who made a few things in Pittsburgh. He was a New York guy. But he frequently collaborated with Henry Hornbostel, as well as McKim, Mead, and White, who did the Carnegie Museum of Art and Natural History. Benno Jansen was internationally well known, but was fairly active, and he did some things in Pittsburgh, like the Pittsburgh Athletic Association and Longview Country Club. And Frederick Osterling, probably one of the most well-known of Pittsburgh architects. I'll just run off a couple of things that you might recognize that he has done. The Charles Schwab House in Braddock, Heinz Factories, the Westinghouse Air Brake Factory in Wilmerding. He did Clayton, the Frick Mansion, the Armstrong Cork Factory, and the Union Trust Building. And you know that funny little church tower that's on the corner of 5th and Belfield? Well, that's the only surviving part of the church that he did. Edward B. Lee was involved in with Hornbostel's firm. Stanley Rausch was the city architect, and then after that became the architect for Allegheny County. I often think maybe that's why some of his public commissions went through, because he was on the he was on the commission, the planning commission board, so he might have sort of gotten some stuff through there. And Frank Vittor, who studied with Rodin, and he's got a really funny story. Well, I don't know about funny. How would you like it if you are notified that you've just gotten hired for a job, and you're like, great, you come over to Pittsburgh, and then you're only here 3 weeks later, you don't really speak a lot of English, and your boss is murdered by Harry Thaw, and he's just like, what do I do? So, you know, he's in New York, you know, he's got these options. What do I do? He opens up his own firm to his credit, and he ends up meeting this gal, and she's a Pittsburgher, and then he moves to Pittsburgh because her family's here, and then he ends up having just this long, illustrious career. Teaches at Carnegie Tech, founds Pittsburgh Society of Sculptors. So, you know, finding out more about these very interesting people behind the scenes was just naturally something that I was interested in, having studied the history of art and architecture. But it was just kind of really interesting and neat to put the sort of a face behind some of these seals. So, as I mentioned, with the city county building, we've got several people involved here. Hornbostel, Lee, Keck. There are these wonderful city and county ornamental details on the outside facade, and there's the seal for the city side. He additionally did another one in the back, and then this really beautiful one. I really like this lion on the courtyard seal. And the city county building is just chock full of seals. It was like Christmas for me. It was like the main foyer with those wonderful brass columns, I later found out, were fabricated by the Louis Comfort Tiffany Company. And just amazing craftsmanship here. This oak laurel right here. The doors, if you've ever had to go upstairs for any reason, maybe with trepidation or to pay taxes or something, you might have stood in front of these doors for a moment or two, but look at how wonderful these are. It reminds me of the baptistry doors in Florence, just almost like a Renaissance work of art. And so there's the city and the county seal on the elevator doors. The council chambers have this incredible wood inlay. The work that went into this is just fantastic. This is all wood inlay. Can you imagine? And they did a funny little thing throughout the entire interior in this nod to the seal, the castle, the wheat chaff, the eagle. They've another castle. These little alliterations are all over the place. I'd be curious to see if any building of a governmental type has this much detail on a small level. Maybe like New York or Chicago, but you'd be hard pressed. It's truly representational of its government. So my journey was all in leading me to all of these neighborhoods and very distinct building exteriors and things like that. And yet I knew that there was like another level, another layer, another piece of the onion to peel back. And so I start going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And I start thinking about, where have I seen these in other places, you know? And so, oh yes, of course, the PAA, Benno Jansen's great Pittsburgh Athletic Association, with this very magnificent entranceway with these classical figures. And again, a fantastic castle with total three-dimensionality. And this was actually quite an impressive thing for Pittsburgh to get Benno Jansen to make this Pittsburgh Athletic Association, this private club. He was a world-class guy at the time. Everybody knew who he was. And this really gave a lot of credibility to not only Oakland, but Pittsburgh, that we had the great Benno Jansen making the beautiful classical building right in the emerging cultural neighborhood of Pittsburgh. So there are a couple of seals on the inside as well, and one of the greats is in the grill room. It's this fantastic carved seal, and it's like there's a sort of a helmet of a knight here, and the castle is above that, and then there's the seal. And again, the wreath, the detail, this tiger maple, is just the work that went into this. Just incredible. I start finding seals in unexpected places. I didn't really think, let me see if there are any in churches, because typically church iconography is religious in nature, and the great Smithfield United, Frederick Osterling built building, because of its unique method of stone over essentially steel. It's in some ways it was a new method of building, and it's essentially kind of built more like a skyscraper. And so because of the strength of its structure, they're able to have these very large and beautiful stained glass windows on the inside, and they're just detailing the history of Pennsylvania and of Pittsburgh. And there's a window that commemorates Abraham Lincoln's 1861 visit to Pittsburgh. So I highly recommend it. That you can go inside. If you're downtown, you can go inside of that church and check out the windows on a daily basis. One of my other favorites was when I went to the Carnegie Music Hall, and in that wonderfully marble adorned foyer with all of the different types of marble, and there's so much to see for the eye to take in. And yet at the far end, facing the museum entrance, there's this beautiful large fireplace at mantle, and laid out in Italian marble, another beautiful seal. Again, this beautiful inlaid, this is marble. Can you imagine the work? That foyer is a thing to behold in and of itself. Heinz Chapel has all of these little shields and crests around the exterior, and I think they were probably selected by the Heinz family to have different meanings and things like that for the family. But here's the city right above and to the left of the front door. There's the seal, and that also has some wonderful stained glass windows. Here's a seal that I found at the Union Trust building of Frederick Osterling. That one's pretty straightforward. So here's an interesting little topic or thing to ponder. Which way should the eagles face? And the answer is, it doesn't actually say specifically. So I guess the answer is whichever way you want them to face. So it's been my pleasure to go to virtually every single neighborhood in Pittsburgh, over 90 neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. And I've been to all of them, hunting high and low for the seal in my endless quest. And it's nice to be able to mention Squirrel Hill. So here we go. Does everybody know the story of William Flynn? Boy, this guy, I'll tell you what. William Flynn, very interesting character. He basically is an Irish immigrant who comes to Pittsburgh by way of Manchester, England, and comes up, starts working construction, becomes a ward boss, and starts amassing a little bit of political power, and gets in with Christopher McGee, and eventually becomes the chairman of the Republican Committee. And he co-founds the construction company Booth and Flynn, and very quickly, through his political connections and his clout, basically takes over all like public works having to do with streets and bridges and tunnels and roads and that kind of thing. Basically kind of has a monopoly over it for the last 20 years or so of the 19th century. And just is a really powerful guy. A lot of corruption and graft though. He was definitely crooked, and you know, who knows who got possibly poured into some concrete there on some of those projects. We'll never know. But eventually he gets kind of busted by, Bigelow kind of breaks up his grasp on things, but he would be responsible for the Liberty, Wabash, and Armstrong tunnels, and then eventually the Holland Tunnel in New York. And after this long life of political and construction-related businesses, he retires to his country estate, Beechwood Farm, which you'll possibly recognize as the Audubon Society's Beechwood Farms. And his daughter, Mary, who is kind of keen to stay close to her dad, buys 500 or 600 adjacent acres and builds an estate called Hartwood, which is now Hartwood Acres. So they're both in the family mausoleum of in Homewood Cemetery. The Flynn Mausoleum, which has this wonderful stained glass window reflecting his political life. I think this is a lot more, this makes him seem like a true gentleman, but you know, I think maybe his true nature might speak otherwise, but nobody knows now. So here's in the upper right, here's that beautiful, another stained glass seal that I found. Another gentleman of note in Homewood Cemetery is Mr. John Worthington. So John Worthington is a very interesting figure in the oil business, because he starts getting in on the oil boom, and he founds these very small companies and starts gaining prominence in trading oil and getting notoriety that way. He gets noticed by Standard Oil Company and basically becomes the superintendent for the entire kind of western area, which was a huge responsibility. He's on a train, and a young gentleman, he sees this young gentleman who he's seen around town. He says, "Hey, come over here and let me talk to you for a second." And it turns out to be Mike Benedum. And he said, they had a conversation, and he said, "I like your style, you young whippersnapper." So he hires Mike Benedum to go out and to be a leasing agent to basically try to convince people, hey, let me get the mineral and oil rights to your land, and then we'll give you a little something. And so he signs up like all these people. Mike Benedum eventually names a son after John Worthington, and I think Mike Benedum amassed a fortune of $70 million because of that fateful conversation he had with Mr. Worthington. So there's the window in the Worthington Mausoleum, another wonderful example of the hand-painted seal on stained glass. So he decides to stay in town, but being a gentleman and a man of wealth, he hires local architect Louis Stevens to build him a Tudor manor, and with a little Jacobean addition, and you guys might recognize this as Temple Sinai, right up there at the top of the hill before Chumley Drive, was once the Worthington Mansion. And another interesting part of looking around for the seals led me into art paper archives and books and those kinds of things. So this is a wonderful map that the Union Trust Company basically gave out to people in 1939 with this beautiful design by Ezra Stiles. Here's the wonderful Beechwood Boulevard entrances where the Frick Environmental Center is. And so that's pretty neat. There's a golf course, as you all may know about, behind Blue Slide Park. Believe it or not, when you walk along Blue Slide, you see those long stretches of grass on hills, mind you. Can't imagine how the ball traveled. It's in the rough, definitely, in Pittsburgh. Seals that aren't there anymore. Whole nother level, peeling back the onion. Here's a wonderful image of a clay model of a seal that hadn't been cast yet, that I found in the University of Pittsburgh archives. And I've kind of gone through and tried to sort of match this up with others, and so far I haven't been able to determine if this is around town anywhere. George Post's pediment of the Bank of Pittsburgh in First Avenue downtown. This is you can see this gentleman worker and these guys in the deconstruction phase. Sadly, I don't believe this still exists, this pediment. However, these beautiful columns were survived, and they are now in Jefferson Memorial Park, and they go to make up the Jefferson Memorial there. So that's pretty cool. Around the just before the Great Columbian Exposition of 1893 in Chicago, the exposition fever was sort of hitting the United States, and so Pittsburgh got on the bandwagon, and it made these wonderful exposition buildings down at the Point on the Allegheny side, and they had several buildings that they had booths, and people would come and display things. So there was a music hall, and there's a beautiful, I'm assuming this possibly was wood or stone, and that whole sort of fad went out, and besides which they needed to make room for Point State Park. So you'll see they demolished a lot of the old buildings. What was that old department store that was demolished down there? A lot of people. No, it was the other one. It was like a guy's name. No, it was like.
Bob.
Okay, anyway.
Boggs and Buells?
Maybe. The Diamond Market which is now Market Square, we had a proper, just like the north side, we had a proper, beautiful market building that people would go into and have stalls and sell their wares, produce, fish, meat. And there was an underpass right there on Fifth Avenue or Forbes, and that was right above the tunnel. Going down to the Gateway Clipper, the History and Landmarks Foundation has a whole kind of wall of architectural details that they kind of attached to the wall there, and I noticed this old bridge feature, long gone. Over the years, a variety of organizations and companies have purposely linked their enterprise also with a very familiar looking thing that we're talking about now. The Carnegie Library. Gee, I wonder where they got that from. Iron City Beer. Smooth. Pittsburgh Automatic Water Heating Company. Here's a funny one. It's got this funny, another little line in there. Pittsburgh with a G without the H. That's a whole other story, folks. I was walking along a side street on the south side, and Thick Bikes was getting into city pride with this funny little, I don't know, I guess that's a little Godzilla chomping down on the city seal there. And they have the big wheel in there instead of the eagle. Pretty cute. Danny Devine, who you guys might remember him. He kind of eventually got caught by the graffiti busters, and it was a big to-do around town. And he made this flyer for a little festival that was at Bakery Square. And this one's cute because it's using the old Nabisco factory, Bakery Square, instead of the castle. So that one's pretty cool. This is one of my favorites. Back in the anniversary year, this wonderful sand sculpture company came to town, and they were working on this for like over a week. And it was only, it only lasted for a short while, but boy, is that beautiful. Spotted in Squirrel Hill. I was coming out of the Giant Eagle, and it's funny how some of these just have come into my life. This woman was parked next to me, and I literally just started laughing hysterically, and she got a smile on her face, and then I said, I've got to get a pic of this. Pittsburgh truly is the zombie capital of the world. Well, Monroeville, but close enough. So I love her tally here of zombies that she's gotten. I was walking along in Seldom Seen Park and kind of climbing up and over, and on the back of the building was this wonderful seal spray painted, and I thought, even the kids are getting in on it. Nice to see. I am telling somebody like 3 days ago, I'm going to be doing this talk, and he lifts his shirt up. I said, buddy, I got to get a pic of that. And he said, you want to get a pic of my lousy Pittsburgh tattoo? And I said, that may be lousy to you, but that's pretty cool. So, seals out in the world. Of course, I mentioned printed material, and there's a lot of examples of the seal that have been in books and in publications. The wonderful Sarah Killikelly's History of Pittsburgh, this beautiful gold embossed cover. The Duquesne Garden program. I start acquiring personal items which are on the table back there, if you guys want to check them out. Coins, medals, pins. So these are some of the things that I've kind of, I'll spend a couple of bucks here and there. I haven't gotten too crazy. You know how some of this stuff on the internet is priced pretty exorbitantly, but if I can get something for a few bucks to add to the seal collection and eventually go into the book, I'll do it. These wonderful, perhaps a few of you took part in the Department of Public Works and Recs, like I guess summertime physical fitness programs. And so here's like a basketball or volleyball, there's a boxing one. I've gotten a spoon from, a commemorative spoon from maybe the sesquicentennial, and this actual, probably some sort of a stirring spoon from the Fort Pitt Hotel, which that's pretty cool. I'm happy about that one. I found this at a little flea-teak place, the antique place in Verona. There was a delegation of the Knights of Equity that came to town, and they've got this wonderful Bessemer furnace, and there's the seal. And I've gotten these coat and lapel and cuff actual Pittsburgh police brass buttons as part of my collection. So naturally, we've been looking at all these very decorative and amazing seals that are just so ornamental, and you know, and then we're looking at just something that's printed in a book, so and signage. So there's noticeably, you know, we're not living in the same era anymore of like very lovingly made things and that are unique. So this is reflected in the seal. We see, and this is just an example from the sign shop of how, you know, eventually there's sort of like, oh, we're going to put our own little sign shop in here, and this one still has the eagles, you know, in the Byzance, and then, okay, well, we're going to sort of just make it a sticker now, and we won't have any eagles in there. We'll have just this little semblance of the checkered mark. And then now, I caught this one a few years ago. It's just like, it almost looks like a face, the two eyes and a mustache and a mouth. And you're like, what's going on here, you know? If you weren't from Pittsburgh, you'd be like, okay, what's that little person doing on that sign? So there's been a noticeable, you know, we just don't make stuff the way that we used to, and that's the world we're living in, which I think makes noticing the really beautiful and unique examples even more special to me. Here's a funny little, the City Fit program made an anthropomorphic little seal person jogging and keeping in shape, looking a little bit wide around the middle there. So basically, I think I've tried to convey like what my goals and aims were, and with this project, and I did indeed, and I still am having a lot of fun doing it. And I'm going to keep looking for the seals. I always encourage people to get a hold of me if you happen to know of one, and I'm always welcome. A gentleman through the Historical Society forwarded some information about the 99th, the World War II group, which has the blue and white checkered, because they were basically based and founded in Pittsburgh. They fought at the Battle of the Bulge, so that's something I can add to the index, the catalog. And so I guess that pretty much concludes. I just wanted to make kind of a closing statement here that I want to thank everybody who's kind of followed me on this journey, and it's been really fun. And I'd like to thank the librarians and the historians and the storytellers and and as I said, the seal pointer outers, as I call them, and especially to those many, many unnamed tradespeople who toiled at their daily jobs, largely in anonymity, to create these masterpieces that continue to surround us in our lives, and that we're noticing decades and even centuries later. Here's some really nice resources, book-wise, that go into the history of Pittsburgh and our development and some of the art and architectural resources. I have to say probably those last two have had a tremendous influence. Discovering Pittsburgh sculpture, there is a copy at the library up here in Squirrel Hill. And Squirrel Hill resident Frank Toker's Pittsburgh and Urban Portrait, he goes through neighborhood by neighborhood, pointing out a lot of distinct and interesting buildings and features of the neighborhoods that are worth noting and to get more information about. So, with having said that, I guess pretty soon we're going to open this up to some questions, and I guess, yeah, thanks for having me tonight.
But how many seals did you encounter, roughly?
The question is how many seals I've encountered, and that's funny. I knew that was going to be, if not one of the first questions. I haven't exactly done a complete tally, but I have, here are 4 pages, and I'm assuming there's more where that came from. So many dozens.
Do you know that the castle reminds me of Mr. Rogers' castle? Is that a connection? Is that known, or?
Is there a connection between the Pittsburgh Castle and Mr. Rogers' castle? That's a really good question.
Because it looks very similar.
It does look very similar.
So castles all look like
Yeah. I wonder, in some way, he possibly, got some sort of inspiration, or the idea of the castle. It's such a, mythical thing in and of itself, right? This storybook and, the fantasy, and when you see that castle, it really brings a lot of things to mind. So I'll add that to things that I need to research.
Another one?
Sure.
So have you looked also at Allegheny County has a seal, or even more interesting maybe, Allegheny City? I think that is seal, and whether those exist and what they
Yeah. So as you could see on the elevator door with the city-county building, the county seal is also featured prominently, not only there, but even more so than the city seal. A lot of the bridges around here were in fact like county bridges, even if they're located within the city. So there is a wide variety of county seals. I guess for whatever reason I've become enamored with the city seal in particular. So maybe when I conclude this project, that's like phase 2. Anybody else have a question? Yes.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth just pointing out the obvious. The Wayne Pitt family crest has, the colors are black and gold, blue and white. That's where sports colors come from.
Yeah.
Black and gold, Pitt's blue
Yeah,
and
the
white.
black and gold. I didn't really make a reference to the black and gold, but you're right. All of the Pittsburgh sports teams, in relation to William Pitt's family colors, being blue and white and black and gold. The first hockey team of the Penguins, the Hornets, were blue and white, and then I think at some point they all, which is kind of, I think we might be unique in this regard. All of our major sports teams, including the Riverhounds, everybody has sort of voluntarily decided that we're going to be black and gold.
I think we're the only city that does that.
I think we're the only city that does that.
Boston still pissed at us. They were black and gold.
Boston has say they have a claim on the black and gold,
Yeah,
but
they're
still mad at us. Anybody else? Somebody was in the back here that had a hand up, maybe, or no? Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, you got several, we had a pretty large number of members and non-members viewing on our
We have some
Zoom.
questions
And,
on Zoom.
You didn't get any questions. Someone pointed out Kaufman's possibly is another seal. You just got congratulations and something from a friend named Jonathan halfway around the planet who stayed up late.
Oh, yes.
That is real.
Former Squirrel Hill, former and currently, I'll say he's at Squirrel Hill, born and bred. My friend Jonathan, coming at us from Israel.
Nice. 3 weeks ago I left, I was at an event at University of Pittsburgh, and they were passing these out.
Wow.
Nice.
And I had heard from coming here last month that you were gonna be talking about Seal of Pittsburgh, so it was on my mind, and then they were passing these out.
That's great. All right, so we got people that are helping me to wrap, bringing
That's
seal
right.
stuff
That's
in.
right.
And I don't know if anybody noticed this T-shirt, but this is a wonderful T-shirt. Somebody in this small company in Lawrenceville quite a few years ago. They did the eagles are actually like crows, and they're flying away.
Wow.
Yes, question in the back.
Not a question.
Not a question.
Osterling also designed a house here that's iconic. The one at Fifth Avenue in Amberson that has the big red ribbon on it at Christmas
Right,
time.
Christmas.
Oh yes, yes.
Victorian house, that
Oh,
was
I didn't know that was Osterling. There's a wonderful house where it's a few years ago somebody bought it, and they decided every Christmas they're going to put this giant red bow on this beautiful, like lightly colored, cream colored house, and it looks like a giant Christmas present.
That was given to his wife for Christmas.
That was a Christmas present. Okay.
And Benno Jansen, in addition to the PAA, also did two other corners there. He designed the Shenley Hotel, now the Student Union, and he designed the 20th Century Club.
Okay. So Benno Jansen's, he also designed the Shenley Hotel, which is now the Pitt Student Union.
Right.
Which one of those spoons is, no, that was from the Fort Pitt. Sorry, that was, and then I guess.
His grandson is an architect in West Palm Beach.
Oh, okay. Nice. There was also a hotel down where the convention center is.
Fort Pitt.
That was the Fort Pitt, and they had a there's a Teenie Harris photo. I wasn't sure about. I'm still in touch with somebody at Pitt regarding reproduction and stuff as to whether it's going to go into the book, and so I hesitated putting it in the slideshow. But there's a pic that Teenie Harris got of somebody who was staying there or something like that, and there's a nice seal, like I think on a fireplace or in one of the rooms on this Teenie Harris photo. So for those of you who don't know Teenie Harris, he's a really prominent, he was a photographer for the Pittsburgh Courier in the Hill District, and they called him One Shot because guys were burning all these bulbs and taking like 10, 12 pictures. He would show up, screw his light bulb in, wait for the right moment, snap his shot, pop the light bulb out and say, "See you later, guys." And everybody was like, "How does Teenie do it?" And he gave his archive to the museum, and there's like 100,000 negatives, and they're digitizing it, but that would be wonderful to go through the Teenie Harris collection and try to identify seals. So, you can see how my brain starts kind of going further down these rabbit holes. I have a whole another avenue to explore, 100,000 possible.
Someone just raised a question that's obviously going to keep you busy for another 100 years. Do other cities have iconic seals that are ubiquitous to them?
Do other cities have iconic seals that are ubiquitous to them? That's a really good question. In going back over some of our prominent characters that have done work in Pittsburgh, we should look at, let's see, who is it? Somebody did the seal for the state of Virginia, and I'm trying to think which one it was. If I had to guess, I think it might have been Frank Vitter. Yeah. He did the Honus Wagner statue, and he also did the Columbus statue, which has now been covered up. And there's a plaque for Frank Vitor that's right in front of that Columbus statue. Yeah, I forget who, I just read that, and I should have written it down, but there's so many facts, and there's only so many I only want to cram so much information into your head, so I could have added another 30 or 40 slides, but I decided to kind of keep it at what we had. Yes, one more question, or a question.
When is your book coming out?
When is the book coming out? That's a good question. So I'm really thankful for having this opportunity, because it's enabled me to not only start thinking about this again and kind of squeezing the onion and getting the onion juices going, but it's getting the ball rolling again. It enabled me to think about this in ways that I haven't for a few years, and to start thinking about how I can organize it, how I can present it. So I do look forward to presenting these in really nice color illustrations on glossy paper, and and putting some really nice statistics about some of these characters through history who've added to our landscape. And I can only hope that it might just take its place among those great tomes that reference Pittsburgh and become part of its history. Well, I thank you, and thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody tuning in on Zoom.